Welcome to Overwatch. This time, we'll be looking at Reinhardt.
Justice.
Wrong one.
Justice will be done.
In this video, we'll examine his equipment, his skills, and the playstyle Reinhardt promotes. We'll spend a few moments examining what the role of a tank is in a game like Overwatch, before discussing the differences between a good tank and a bad tank. Afterwards, we'll look into the history of our German paladin. Reinhardt is, so far, the only melee-oriented character in Overwatch, at least until a certain cyborg ninja shows up. With a brutally damaging hammer and a wide shield, Reinhardt will be the primary force behind any push in Overwatch, more so than the other tank currently in the game, Winston. Let's look at his abilities, and then look at how they can shape a game. Reinhardt's weapon is the Rocket Hammer. This swings in a wide arc in front of him and deals high damage to anything it comes into contact with. I would not be surprised if this is actually one of the most high damage per second weapons in the game, limited only by its melee range. With its wide arc, usage should be fairly simple, in contrast to the melee-focused characters in other first-person shooter games such as the Skulks in Natural Selection. A true knight, Reinhardt can also raise his shield. This projects a broad 2000 hit point shield in front of him, but as a trade-off, Reinhardt is forced to move slowly. This allows Reinhardt to protect people as they advanced. However, note that healing Reinhardt will not fix the shield. The shield itself has no cooldown, and like all shields, will recharge while out of combat. To close the distance, Reinhardt has his charge. Launching forward, Reinhardt will pin any character he collides with, and deal massive damage if it collides with a wall or object. An immensely satisfying ability, the biggest downside is the relatively long 10-second cooldown that starts after collision. Be careful when using this. I can just imagine a vital tank launching into a Hanzo, only to end up miles from the team and surrounded by enemies. Lastly, for normal abilities, we have Fire Strike, Reinhardt's ranged option. A tall projectile that pierces through targets, this gives our tank solutions to enemies he can't simply charge into. However, the projectile is slow moving and on a cooldown. Its use is a bonus to help you push, not a primary means of attack. Reinhardt's ultimate, Earth Shatter, allows him some form of crowd control on the enemy team. By slamming his rocket hammer into the ground, he projects a cone that knocks down enemies in front of him and deals 100 damage to each target. Considering Reinhardt should seldom be alone, this will allow a safe, easy to mop up array of enemy targets and help take down a frustrating healer or a nimble foe. Now that we understand his kit, let's consider for a moment what the job of our tanks are, with a focus on Reinhardt. I've said before that Reinhardt is the pusher. His shield lets him protect allies, and his abilities, in my opinion, show that he's the one you want when moving into a fortified enemy position. Moving in behind his shield, firing off the occasional fire strike before mopping up will be the primary modus operandi. This in contrast to the other tank, Winston, who seems to be more of a zone denial role. While they both have some flexibility, there's nothing stopping you pushing with Winston or using Reinhardt's shield to add another layer to Bastion's shield after all. Reinhardt seems much easier to wear down over a long period than his counterpart, due to the nature of his shield, while Winston offers limited mobile protection to other teammates. If you want to be a great Reinhardt, you should think protectively. Being melee, you have a massive disadvantage in that you can be beaten by people simply running away. Yes, you have some ranged options, but everyone else has better ranged options. Instead, think of yourself as an enabler for other people to do great things. Pharah's rockets are much better than your fire strikes, so make sure she's safe to use them, for example. You know how and when to shove properly. Moving into an enemy position is always going to be risky. A great Reinhardt is going to be the start of any push. Knowing when your Zenyatta has its ultimate or when your Reaper is good to go rather than just leaping in and dying is going to be key. I guarantee there'll be plenty of Reinhardt shouting away, "OMG WTF, where are you team? They're the bad ones. Don't be that guy." And that you love wrecking stuff. Look at this guy, getting up close and swinging away will be one of the most satisfying things in the game. Just make sure you're doing your duty and you'll get to enjoy that often. Now with that out of the way, let's look into what possesses someone to dress like it's the 1500s and wield a hammer instead of a gun. Reinhard Wilhelm is the fedora-wearing nerd who drank his supplements, lifted, and never skipped leg day. A believer in knightly virtues of honor, justice, and noble conduct, Reinhard is the definition of a paladin, a protector of the weak, a champion of justice, and a force for good in the world. During the Omnic Crisis, this highly decorated German soldier proved himself time after time, his eccentricities and noble nature earning him high status. As time went by, Reinhardt was eventually forced by Overwatch to retire in his 50s, where he could only watch the organisation that was once such a beacon of hope crumble away. When it was eventually disbanded, Reinhardt turned his hopelessness into a fresh resolve, once again donning his crusader armour and travelling Europe as a roaming knight, righting wrongs, defending the innocent, and flying the flag for hope and justice. Reinhardt as a character represents the idea of noble battle, of fighting for a high cause. An individual gripped by a strong moral compass, he strikes me as the type to refuse to sit idly by while villains work in the shadows. It takes a lot of drive to leap into war in your 60s after all. While his intentions cannot be questioned, I do wonder if there will be some contrast in his gung-ho, conflict-seeking, smite the darkness nature with Mercy's pacifism, for example. The two could work well in tempering each other, Reinhardt pushing for action while Mercy pushing for restraint. Reinhardt also works well as a champion against villainy. While a little too righteous to serve as a main character, leave that to a more relatable person like Tracer, he strikes me as very much the best friend character from a Saturday morning cartoon, the big tough guy who's all too eager to launch into action, even if it might get him into trouble or fall into a trap. Ultimately, with Reinhardt in front of you, you know you're in the hands of a good man. Next time, hopefully with a shorter break between, we'll be looking at our lightweight, mech-suited fly girl, Farah, a personal favourite. Thank you for watching to the end. I am but one channel amongst many, and I hope you learned a little about Reinhardt. If you enjoyed the video, you know what to do, like, sub, all that fluff. I enjoy reading your discussions and opinions, so feel free to discuss if you agree or disagree with anything. Toodles!